Good day, this is Pastor Howard Hoffman, the real deal pastor with the real deal Word of God. Today, my friends, we're going to study just a little bit about a fellow who we don't preach or teach about very often. And one of the reasons for this is because he is one of the most unlikely candidates to do something for or with God. This lesson is about Cyrus, a Babylonian king. So why would that be important? I mean, yes, indeed, he was a historical figure, and yes, indeed, Babylon was a nation in history. But how would that apply to us in the church, or people who simply want to know a little more about God? Well, great news. Babylon is in the Bible, and so is King Cyrus. Actually, he's mentioned more than 30 times, although, as I said, generally we don't talk or teach much about him. Maybe you remember another fellow, though, in the Bible, Daniel. Daniel in the lion's den. I preached about him just the other week. Well, King Cyrus was the king just before King Darius, the man who had Daniel placed into the lion's den. This is the time frame or the time period in the nation of Israel when this occurrence happened. And there was a theme that was running through the nation of Israel, which played out actually many times throughout the nation of Israel's history in the Old Testament. And this theme was this. We have the Jewish people, the Jews. Always remember, they are the chosen ones of God's apple of his eye. They have forgotten God. They are doing their own thing, thinking they could just do whatever they wanted to do and have God's blessing continue upon them. Well, my friends, does that sound remotely familiar? It should, because here we are as America, the land of the free, the home of the brave, where we say, God bless America, quite often, believing that we also can do anything and everything we please and have God's smile upon it and keep on blessing. Well, my friend, God only takes that kind of thinking so long, and then he has to make a correction. And so in this theme passage, God does make a correction, and he lets his people, the nation of Israel, the Jewish people, become captives and become ruled by another nation. That nation is Babylon. This passage from Isaiah 45 is the passage we'll be using today. Maybe you'll want to stop your own video right now and read Isaiah 45, but I'm going to give you two verses, key verses from 45 that are key into understanding this, and they are verses 4 and 5. Bear with me as I read this to you. For Jacob, my servant's sake, and Israel, mine elect, I have even called thee Cyrus by name. And I have surnamed thee Cyrus, though thou hast not known me. I am the Lord thy God, and there is none else. There is no God beside me. I girded thee, Cyrus, though thou hast not known me. Now, so this lesson and passage about King Cyrus has not known God, the Babylonian king. What's so bad about being ruled by Babylon, being in exile in Babylon? Well, the first thing is pretty easy to understand. You're not in your own homeland anymore. But not only that, now another nation is ruling over you, and the king and the people, though, also do not believe in your God, Jehovah, and that is for good logical reasoning. Those here in Babylon, they believe in a number of gods, plural. They have defeated you, the nation of Israel, and have made your people, who have but this one God, Jehovah, captive, and they've taken away your land, your possessions, your homes, and you are underneath their jurisdiction. So the thinking comes to this. Our gods, plural, are much stronger than your God, Jehovah, and our ways are much wiser than yours because we lost. We won and you lost. I got that just backwards, didn't I? We won and you lost, Mr. Land of Israel. The logic is as simple as falling off a log. And so here we have King Cyrus, a Babylonian, who goes along with his Babylonian counterparts. That should not be surprising to anyone, for his belief system is exactly how he was raised, and he goes along with it, and he and his people are now in control. My friends, but there was that guy I just talked about a little while ago, Daniel. You know, Daniel, he just has a way of getting to you. And although we're not told about it much in great detail in the passage here of the Bible, it is my belief that Daniel got not only to other people, but he got to King Cyrus right in his heart. And here's why I would say just that. Cyrus, with all of his personal and religious background in the Babylonian ways that we would call paganism, which simply means having another god other than Jehovah God. And they had many, many gods, and this was his way of life. But yet, this man, King Cyrus, actually sends people and money back to Jerusalem to help to rebuild the temple, the worship house for God Jehovah. And he actually didn't do this secretly, but he made an open decree, a proclamation for this to happen. And because of this, there are some preachers, some theologians who, much wiser than I, have stated and continue to state that it is actually King Cyrus, a Babylonian, who is key in the foundation for the thing that we call today Judaism. Now think of that for just a minute. Even the possibility, the small possibility, that a Jew, a non-pagan, who doesn't even remotely think or share your beliefs, is the start or the helper to start Judaism? That just doesn't want to compute in a logical brain. We would certainly rationalize or think different yet. But here it is in the pages of black and white of the Bible. King Cyrus becomes a key player in Judaism. Let me share something with you about Cyrus' early background before he has any involvement with Daniel or before he is a king. Learn, listen, and watch something amazing happen. The Greek historian Herodotus records that before King Cyrus's birth, his grandfather, King Astyages, had a dream, and that in his dream, his daughter Medane, out of her flowed a stream of water, and it filled his capital, and it flooded all of the land of Asia. So King Astyages was perplexed by this, and he called his interpreters of dreams to tell him what it meant. And they said that his pregnant daughter would have a son who would overthrow and take King Astyages out. So in order to stop this perceived threat, good old King Astyages sent for his trusted servant Harpagus, and he told him to kill and to bury his daughter's son as soon as it was born. However, Harpagus could not bring himself to do this, to kill this unborn child, and instead he gave him to a shepherd and his wife to kill. But they were also unwilling to kill the child, and so they instead reared Cyrus as their own. That's an amazing feat right there. You remember King David, the great king of Israel, a shepherd boy. Jesus Christ, known as the great shepherd. And here we have this man, Cyrus, a pagan, raised by shepherd. Well, the servant Harpachus' reluctance to kill the infant Cyrus and the emotional attachment that he had to the newborn child and also to the married couple shows that our great creator, God, Jehovah, hand was at work to rescue and to use the life for Cyrus. The Bible, my friends, is full of individuals and accounts of God who has a special interest and has a special blessing upon their life to fulfill his destiny. And this indeed was the case with Cyrus. God had foreknew and foreordained this man to fulfill this destiny as his anointed servant. Let me read you verse 1 from chapter 45. Thus saith the Lord to his anointed, to Cyrus, whose right hand I have holden, to subdue nations before him, and I will loose the loins of kings, to open before him the two-leaved gates, and the gates shall not be shut. God protected and ordered the events of his life to fulfill his destiny. I share this with you today because I find it interesting that a man who is thrown away and brought up by shepherds, who is a pagan, is used by God to do great and mighty things for God. God had planned this out way in advance. This story that we're reading from Isaiah 45 actually occurred 150 years before Cyrus' birth. That's right, my friend. It is a prophetic word. It is 150 years before the little child was even born. My friends, I got to tell you, I don't even know what's going to happen this afternoon. But God does. And he knows about tomorrow and all of the rest of the time. And that is pretty big stuff. Now, my friends, some folks, other folks, probably a whole lot smarter than I, have made a possible connection, a modern day connection, to this event in biblical history. I'll share it with you. But please know in so doing about this prophecy that this is not some type of political speech, but instead looking at the mysteries of God. Now, this prophecy we're talking about today was from what passage of Scripture? Isaiah chapter 45. With God, often numbers or cycles of events have great significance. I think that God does that not because he needs to, but to kind of draw our attention, for us to pay attention to he's doing something, and he repeats himself many times, so we get it a little better. Now, my friends, many have described modern day America as the new Babylon, which to me means a couple of things. One, I believe that we, like them of old, don't have much to do with Jehovah God. The reason being, we have tons of small gods. And in so having all of these small gods, we do things our own way, not thinking about the Bible, not thinking about God's thoughts, not thinking about its ways. When we're honest, we must certainly admit that this is the way our culture has been for quite a while. But now then, in America, right out of the blue, we have the most unlikely person just become the President of the United States. Can you remember a year and a half ago, when the news was first broadcast that this man, who we'd possibly seen on television or knew about something about, Donald J. Trump, was going to run for president. I thought to myself, this must be some kind of joke they're playing on us. Well, not because I dislike the man, but I thought this is not the type of fellow that runs for the president of the United States. He's not a lawyer. He's not a politician. He hasn't been in other congressional seats. He's not a governor. He's just an entrepreneur. He's a businessman, and that's not who runs for president. Well, we always have somebody that's being silly, and so I thought in running for parties, we have people that run on the orange balloon party. They say, if you elect me, I'll make sure everyone has a whole stack of orange balloons. Or there are people who say, I'm in the fisherman's party. I'll give you a fishing rod if you elect me. And those people get about 3 votes. Well, I didn't think it was quite to that extreme, but yet I didn't quite believe it as being serious. But indeed, it was serious. But the likelihood of him coming forth and overcoming these obstacles defies modern day logic. Do you think it possible for a baby who was to be thrown away and killed, who was raised by a shepherd, who became the Babylonian king, the king of the pagans, would one day help the Jews rebuild God's temple? Does that defy logic? You bet your sweet bippy it does. And so now the logic of this man, Donald J. Trump, who has become president, who's been mostly about what for his life? Think of it. Be honest. I will be. I'm the real deal pastor. What's he been about? He's been about making money and having a good life. Whether anyone likes it or not, when we're truthful is, the the American dream is just the same. Think of it. Donald J. has nice kids, plenty of cash, and has had a couple of really nice-looking women for his wife. This, my friends, is paganism at its best. So as a good pagan, to continue on in that lifestyle, what is your way of life? You basically get all of the wine, women, and song you can. Why? Because, my friends, that is the height of paganism, and really the height of what Americanism has truly become. Without getting too far off track, it reminds me of a song maybe some of you may have heard. Others can look it up on YouTube. It was not a Christian song at all, by Dr. Hook many years ago, and the song was Cover of the Rolling Stone. It's really a comical way to describe the modern day Babylon. Oh, shucks, I mean the modern day America. Well, let's play out our recent history, just in the past week or so. Donald J. Trump, a pagan at heart, becomes the what number president? Maybe you forgot. It's number 45. What chapter of Isaiah have I been reading from today? 45. It's the prophecy of Cyrus, the pagan king, helping the people of God. Let's think about some of the actions of our new president in recent past. Donald J. says, Israel is our great friend. What? Why would a pagan say that? I don't know. Then he says, well, we're going to stop giving money to kill babies by the government, because killing babies is bad. Hey, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense to a pagan. All a pagan wants is wine, women, and song. Then he says, let's start building a wall to keep illegal people out because doing illegal things is bad. Hey, who cares about being illegal, man? We're pagans, right? All we gotta have is more cash, more wine, more women, and more song. That's not making much sense. Then old Mr. Prez says, hey, freeze up that money that the last guy was sending to people who want to hurt the Jews. I don't like that because the Jews are our friends. Jews are good and I like them. Wow. Then old Donald J. goes on to say some words that we never heard for quite a few years. Radical Islamic terrorist. He says we got to keep those people out. I mean, we can't be helping them. Those people want to hurt us. Well, there's more things very similar that he's done and said in the past little while. But we need to stop and not analyze those actions, but ask ourselves why. Why in the world would he care? And why would this man Cyrus, a pagan, care about the Jews or the things of God? This is just not the way that you go about things. Well, you see, the Bible tells us that God actually is in control of things. And he can make people do the things that he wants. He is the one that does that here. He's been doing some things in our recent history. But the amazing news and the great news for you and the great news for me today is that God very often, in fact almost always, chooses an unlikely person to do much for God. Why is that? Why is that important? Why is that important news for you? Because in anyone's thinking, Cyrus couldn't do anything for God. But he did. Donald J. Trump, you say, well, he couldn't do anything for God. I mean, listen, he's not related to Billy Graham or John Hagee or Charles Stanley or even some make-pretend prosperity preacher. So he couldn't help with anything in the way of forwarding God's kingdom, could he? No, wrong. He already can and he already has. Why? Because he was so smart and he came to his senses? Nope, wrong. Because God made it happen that way. Do you ever remember saying the Lord's Prayer and repeating these lines? Let thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Maybe we as Christians should have been saying those words a little more sincerely, a little more prayerfully as we talk to God, because if so, possibly there were people in our recent past who were also unlikely candidates who also could have been used more of God. I don't want to gross you out, but the Bible talks about dogs consuming, eating their own vomit. And we here in America, like a dog, have done much the same. Here's why, and why we need to pay attention to it. We would say a dog is dumb to eat their own vomit. And you know, so are we. But we would also say, because we have a little more reasoning ability, that sooner or later we come to the realization that vomit actually doesn't taste so good. And also say, hey, wait a minute, the stuff that's in the vomit actually may be in the thing that made me sick and caused me to vomit in the first place. We understand with our reasoning and our intellect that some of the things that we have around us that are like vomit, things that are bad for us, we possibly might need to keep away from them. My friends, it's not time to smell the coffee, but instead, it's time to smell the vomit and say, hey, I think I'd rather hear the trumpet call of God rather than keep eating and living and smelling this stuff, because it's really not good for me. Do you think that you could say that today? Could you say, I think that makes a little bit of sense? I'm kind of tired of consuming vomit. My friends, Donald J. Trump, who is being used as a trumpet for God, is not the answer to all of life's problems. He's not the answer to all of America's problems. He can be used like Cyrus of old to do some things for God. But the real answer for us today is God and His Son, Jesus Christ. Could you consider Him in His way instead of your own? I urge you to do just that. Prayerfully consider Him in His ways. I believe that your life will be much richer for it. This is Pastor Howard Hoffman, the Real Deal Pastor. Until next time, God bless.